West Coast Davengers.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the West Coast Davengers. I'm Dave, your host, and I'm bringing you a special interview today, all the way from the Philippines. I'm going to be talking to Manix Abrera, who is a cartoonist and also just an amazing overall illustrator and a great person, and his friend and original art rep, Jiggy Cruz, who also is the founder of Next Comic Art, which represents a whole range of different artists. So you should take a look at his website and you should listen to this conversation. Very recently, Manix did this great Thundercats variant cover for Dynamite. We're going to be talking to him about all sorts of inspirational things, and also his experience at OAX and San Diego Comic-Con, and you're going to be able to see him at New York Comic-Con the week that this video goes up. So without further ado, my interview with Manix Abrera and Jiggy Cruz. Today, I'm going to be talking to two gentlemen that are actually in the future. It is Monday morning in the Philippines, and my next two guests are superstar artist, legendary cartoonist, and all-around great guy, Manix Abrera, with Jiggy Cruz, the man behind Next Comic Art, who is the rep and the one who brought Manix to us from Next Comic Art. Jiggy and Manix, how you guys doing?
Thank you. That was a super hardcore intro, Dave.
I gotta make everybody feel like they're special.
Yeah,
Because
now,
we
now I'm
are.
perspiring. Now it's so
I'm
embarrassing.
not really supposed to be here, but thanks for having me nonetheless.
Well, it's nice to be able to talk to, this is a new thing for me, having an art rep here, a friend, and having Manix here. So, and I like the fact that we're doing this cross, we are literally going over the ocean. I'm reaching into the future via the internet and
Yeah.
bringing you guys to me,
It's
which
so
is pretty
sci-fi.
cool. Yeah. I mean, how long is that flight from the West Coast to the US to the Philippines? Like 12, 15
It's
hours?
much better going to the West Coast.
Mhm.
I don't get as tired.
Yeah.
But when we went to OAX, I got, dude, I was so tired when we
Oh,
arrived in
yeah.
Florida. Yeah. So maybe we
Yeah,
should visit you first on the West Coast and take a day or two. And
Yeah.
then we fly to go to OAX.
I mean, I could show you guys around, could bring you to Snoqualmie Falls. You guys could see all of the active volcanoes that are in one chain
Wow.
across the western coast of the United States,
Yeah,
including
let's do that.
yeah. Mount Rainier is about 38 miles from my house or so, but it looks like it's right outside my house some days because 14,500 foot active volcano is
Nice.
yeah. So I met both of you and was kind of briefly. I mean, obviously we met like towards that end of the weekend at OAX when I got that brilliant commission there of Galactus and Silver Surfer. But we met at OAX, and was that your first like bigger or convention in the States, Manix?
It was my second. The first
Second.
was SDCC before OAX.
Okay, so
And
2023 San Diego.
we really enjoyed it. Having that big convention in the US, because it's really different, because when I first it was my first time in the US and in SDCC, and I was so
Mhm.
overwhelmed, and we had a lot of tours. So during OAX, my family and I planned a longer stay in the US. So we stayed for about 3 months.
Yeah.
Living with relatives and friends, so we don't have to spend so much for the hotels. And we really
Yeah, that
enjoyed. And OAX was so awesome because we got to talk more with collectors and other artists, because it was more intimate.
Yeah, it was
And that's where we met you.
yeah. I gotta blame Dinesh because Dinesh dragged me over and said you have to see his artwork. And like
Dinesh.
yeah, and for me, I was extremely overwhelmed. That was my first. It's not my first convention or anything, but it was the first time I was ever inundated with that much artwork and that many artists in such a confined space. And I was shooting everything for my channel, so I was trying to see everything, and you couldn't. Like, even how small it was, like you couldn't see everything. in the best way possible because you're so pleasantly overwhelmed with so much positivity and artwork.
Yeah, yeah. They should make it 1 week OAX.
The amount of money that people would have to like secure, and then also the amount of money that they would, like people would have to lock their credit cards after 3 days. um,
Yeah,
but
so it's
I feel bad for the wives.
yeah.
yeah. Although there are, we all know there are several collectors that their wives and they're both collectors. So, but I guess Orlando's not the worst. Like Florida in January for the most of the world, or at least the U.S., it's not a bad place weather-wise to be in January. I know for me, as much as sorry, mom and dad, dislike Florida, uh, you know, it's at least nice to be there when it's like cold and gray in Washington.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we're excited to go there again next year.
yes.
Perfect. It's perfect because we can go to Disney and Universal after.
Mhm. Yeah,
Or
and
before.
or
Yeah.
before, yeah, or during. Yeah, for me, it's a chance. Like now, my parents get a visit from me now. Or it's going to be every January because they live in South Florida, so I'll visit them afterwards for like 4 or 5 days. So let's go. Let's turn back the clock. So Manix, you grew up in a very artistic household. Your father is a cartoonist, correct? Or is he still a
Yes.
cartoonist?
Yes. Oh, he's retired now.
He's retired. Okay.
He retired during the pandemic, I think. Yeah.
That's not a bad time to retire.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
he told us that he was already tired during because he's a political cartoonist.
Hmm.
Oh, and thanks for the research, Dave.
Yeah, of course. Oh no, yeah. I like learning about people. I mean, that's I would say honestly, the one and two reasons why I want to do interviews on this channel is one is to learn, and two is to let everybody else learn, by having guests on and
Nice.
exposing them to art.
Thank you. Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. So you grew up in I assume watching your dad draw a lot.
Yes.
How early did you pick up, like,
Was
not pick up, I mean, how early did you start
start.
cognizant, like, making art?
I think the earliest that I can remember was I think I was 5 years old because my father kept all of my artworks and my comics when I was little. Because every time I was always sitting beside him while he was working. My dad is a political cartoonist, so he does
Mhm,
editorial cartoons, comic strips every day. He made a lot of uh, satire and political commentaries, but he always makes it really funny. So when I
mhm,
was little, I always copied his drawings. I was sitting there beside him, and he was always telling me that my real name is Manuel, so
mhm.
he calls me Manuel. Manuel, you shouldn't copy my style, or you shouldn't copy anyone's style. You should have your own style, even if you don't find it really good. But you know that it's your style. You should keep it and make it really yours.
Yeah,
So that's one of his best tips for me as an artist, that I should not it's okay to have a lot of artistic idols, but
of
I should
course.
have my own style and technique. So that's what I brought up to now.
Well, it's something I look at influences a lot. Like I'm always interested in exploring influences, and it started in my love for music, and pinpointed, like, I know when it started was when I found out that Pearl Jam was they were huge fans of the Who. And then I started to listen to the Who, and I'm like, oh, I see this now. And I would never, nobody would ever be like, oh, Pearl Jam's a clone of the Who. But if
Mm.
you look at the influences, you're like, yeah, there's always going to be pieces of the puzzle. And I know with Bill Watterson, Calvin and Hobbes is a huge influence, and Gary Larson. I've heard you talk about the other side, which that was my favorite thing.
Your
The Far
research is
Side.
hardcore, Dave.
Uh, and so in that, do you remember, because you're a cartoonist and I know you love comics. Can you pinpoint either of the first comic influence that you've had, and also, besides Watterson, like, are there like, or do you remember the first time you saw Calvin and Hobbes or The Far Side?
The first, my number one idol is my dad because when I was little, I was always looking at him. And there's this really, really famous comic strip artist here in the Philippines. His name is Paul Medina Jr. He makes Pugad Baboy comic strips. It's about a Filipino slice of life, and
Mm-hmm.
he's still going strong up to now.
Hmm.
He's also my idol. And the other influences are, of course, Calvin and Hobbes, Archie, and all of
Yeah.
these. Casper, Tintin. I really love Tintin,
Mm-hmm.
and with this, I also got my first copy of X Men by Jim Lee.
Oh
The
yeah.
90s X Men. It was just I just borrowed it from my classmate. It really blew my mind because of the artwork and the colors, and I really loved it. And this was the time that Image Comics was starting. So I started collecting Wildcats.
Well, Jim Lee, yeah, obviously Jim Lee is. There's nobody that's our age that wasn't
Yeah,
looking. If you're into comics, you were looking at Jim Lee at some point, and
yeah,
obviously, I'm well known as a somewhat of a Todd McFarlane fan. Same thing. It's like you're looking at those guys because that was our generation. That was
yeah,
those
yes,
were the
yes.
people that we were looking up to on the front of comics. Like, and we were talking beforehand, but was it pretty easy to find American comics in the Philippines in the 90s?
I can say it was easy. It was easy to find American comics here in the Philippines, but it was really expensive. I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right, Jiggy?
Yeah.
It's expensive. Yeah, you
So
can
Yeah.
see it in
usually you
Toy
can get it
Comic
in the
Store.
main, like the main bookstore, like a sort of a Barnes and Noble.
Yeah,
Hmm.
But there were specialty shops that would sell magazines, and then comics would be on the side. But when the 90s came in, the comics took over the magazines.
Yeah.
But way before that, Dave, I wasn't born yet. Our older friends here in the Philippines said that they had to go to military bases here, which would
Mhm.
have different comic books. And the difficult part was the issues weren't all like there's 240 and then 240, like what happened to
what
241 and
happened?
240? It was
You have
kind of
to
like that.
imagine. Yeah,
So when you say military bases, you talking American military bases
Yes.
in the Philippines?
Yes.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's a piece of a puzzle that I talk about on this channel, because I don't know if you're familiar with what a Mark Jeweler insert is, but long story short is that up until about 92, 93, from the late 60s, early 70s, they had this company that sold shitty jewelry to soldiers in the US, and those comics that would have that insert, that color insert in the middle, are worth like 2 to 4 times what a regular version of that comic is worth.
oh
And
I
wow.
so,
researched about it because during the pandemic, there were like variants, like, oh, it's a Mark Jewelers,
mhm.
like, oh, what's a Mark Jewelers? And then I checked it out. Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
that's why it's more.
I just bought a huge collection that just happened to be not too far from my house. That was a military collection, and
Wow.
85% of it was Mark Jeweler variants.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
so I look for that stuff. That's kind of my, but
Nice.
we always try and figure out, like, okay, Germany was always a big military presence for the US, and so there are certain bases. Philippines now makes sense because so much of that stuff comes back to the West Coast, and from the Philippines you're either going to San Diego or you're coming up here because that's where the big military bases are in the West Coast.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for that piece. So
Thanks.
it's interesting to me because in the 90s, obviously, you're at the height, like the last time there was a height of production of comics around the world. Um, so you're looking at Wildcats and stuff. Let me ask you a question, because we are almost the same age, and I see it in your artwork. were you a big Simpsons fan growing up? Was The Simpsons on TV in the Philippines?
Yes, yes, yeah. I'm having goosebumps because of all the. Yeah, that's right. I was a really big Matt Groening Simpsons fan.
Yeah.
I really loved his stories, the his humor, the twists of every story, and there's always a moral to every
Oh
episode.
yeah.
It's really nice. I really loved it.
I
And
think
it was late that I discovered that he also made comic books
that's right.
before
Life is
Simpsons. Yeah.
yeah, life is hell, work is
Yeah,
hell. Like
yes, Life is Hell, Love is
yeah,
Hell. It's really, really funny. I
yeah.
discovered that after college. I didn't know about that before.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think I knew that until I was probably a little bit older because The Simpsons was so early on in my life. I'm like
So
8 or 9
big.
years old. Yeah. But it is interesting when you think about the difference between a comic strip artist versus a comic book artist. The comic strip artists who are generally writing their own stuff too, there are morals. Like they have to be quicker. There has to be, and the easiest way to kind of solve a story is by making it something that's like, this is morally correct versus
Yeah.
let's punch the Red Skull in the face again.
And it's really different telling a story with just a little bit of space, just three
Hmm.
panels. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm that was my training because I've been doing it almost for more than 20 years now. Making small comic strips and telling stories with just this little space. So
Now,
that's
oh, sorry.
so that's why I think I'm really excited also to explore doing other longer stories like
Hmm.
in 12, 14. My other kind of comics.
Yes, and we will get to those because I'm fascinated by them. The strip you've been doing for the longest, is it called Kikomachine?
Yes, yes. Wow.
Okay,
I'm mindblown by your research there. Yeah, it's Kikomachine Komix. It's a wordplay from Kikomaching. Maching means
Monkey.
monkey. Yeah, it was a really famous character, children's character when we were little. So
So
I
this
okay,
just
is
made
the Batibot version, Manix.
yes, yes, Batibot.
So
So
Dave,
there's
Batibot is like the Philippine Sesame Street.
yes,
So
yes,
we
ah,
got to learn Tagalog with Batibot and then English with Sesame Street. So
yeah,
that's how
yeah.
we became
That's right.
bilingual.
yeah. Looking through some of your comics, like even regardless of the wordless ones, which are obviously easy to read for anybody, but looking through some of your comics, I never realized how much English comes into play in the Philippines. Is there I I wish I was more world history savvy, but is there a reason why there's so much English used in the Philippines, and at least in the regard of the writing of these comics sometimes in the dialogue?
I think it's because we were under the U.S. We were occupied by by the U.S.
Yeah.
For a really long time, and also by Spain.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
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 Spain took over us like in hundreds, and
yeah,
they
more
never
than
taught
100 years.
Spanish. But what
Oh,
the Americans brought here in the Philippines was education,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
and
yeah.
in school,
So
the main language for all these subjects are English.
English,
The
yeah.
only ones in Tagalog are it's just Filipino and sometimes social studies.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's
Oh,
why now when we speak, there's really a lot of English.
yeah. 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 And
That's our normal way of speaking.
And
huh.
television,
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah,
stuff are in English. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also realize, like, when you think about the biggest movies that have come out of all time, they all come, like the ones that people know around the world came from here.
yeah, yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
because I mean, Terminator 2 didn't come out of another country; it came out of here. I mean, I'm sure in 1993 or whatever it was, 92, 93, you can go around the world and say, "I'll be back," and everybody knew what you just said.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
I mean, it is, like comics is a universal language, art's a universal language, but the pop culture that kind of ties the, like our species together is very interesting, that like you can pinpoint all of these moments around, like ET. I'm sure back in 1982, you could go to somebody that doesn't speak English and say phone home, and they knew
Yeah,
exactly what you were talking about.
yeah.
Um, in terms of comic wise, and I don't know, does manga kind of creep into the culture over there as it obviously has been doing around the world?
I think manga is bigger now recently, but when we were little, Jiggy and I, it's more US.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
More,
we got a couple of, well, a lot of anime back in the
yes,
day.
we had a lot of
right.
anime.
And I remember in school, my classmates would bring like Dragon Ball manga, like the collected
Mm,
version, the tankobon, um, but they were in Japanese.
yeah.
So we like, oh, what's gonna happen with Goku and Cell and all that stuff. So we got to see. That's how I learned. Like, why am I reading from right to left? Oh, that's how you read manga.
Yep.
And we just learned through the images, the pictures, the drawings,
Mhm.
without. But we got to understand, and I think it was because of the cartoons that were brought here.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that
Yeah,
pierced.
Dragon Ball was really huge then. When
Yeah,
so,
I think it pierced the culture here in cartoons. I never really got into it until more recently, but I remember seeing Akira, whatever, 25 years ago, and that was like, what is this? Like, wow.
Dave,
Uh,
we were actually ahead of you with Dragon Ball and the Sailor Moon.
yeah,
When I visited the States, like brand new series, like, huh? I've seen this cartoon years ago.
yeah. It's funny how that works. I mean, they're just we're stubborn people anyway. Americans. So like,
Aren't we
try,
all?
yeah, try to introduce something into the culture here from another culture. It's like, I don't know about that. So, Manix, do you have brothers or sisters?
yes, yes. I have a brother and sister. I'm the eldest.
Okay, because I was wondering, you have a really amazingly wild sense of humor, right?
I
And
think
like, I know where my sense of humor comes from. I can pinpoint Weird Al Yankovic and a couple of movies being, in The Simpsons or something. But is there something that like influenced your sense of humor? Because we're going to talk about 12 and how I threw the book down laughing so hard the other day. But
thank you.
is there something that, because we all, once again, we're all just a product of our environment and stuff, but is there something that like, oh, this is the funniest thing that I watched as a kid or whatever? Was it your dad's stuff that really kind of,
My dad has had a lot of collection, art books and comic strips. And one time I just looked at this book. It's called The Far Side, Gary Larson.
Mhm, mhm.
And that's the point that really made my humor twisted when I read The Far Side, because what the heck is this? It's so it's so
It's
wrong, but it's so
ridiculous.
funny. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
irreverent. It's ridiculous.
yeah. That I was in grade school then, so that's when I discovered this other dimension of humor. Yeah, it's from the far side.
I used to have I used to like the Far Side. My parents would get, the paper and I would look at that, and Garfield were the things. But I used to have the do you remember the page a day calendars? It was this big
Ah,
thick thing.
yes.
Yeah, and you tear off every day, and each day is a different fart. Like, how when you think
Just a
about
cartoon, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Secret channel, yeah.
I mean, we can talk about how like prolific a guy like Jack Kirby was in comics, but when you think about a guy like Gary Larson, the amount of single strips that he's done is like
It's
thousands and
mind blowing. Yeah.
thousands.
Insane.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Like,
it's so smart.
yes,
Like
it's way
in
too
school,
smart.
like you'd be make fun of if you didn't get the joke. Like, oh, he's slow.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what I liked about him, like Schultz. There's always going to be a funny animal, right? You've got Calvin and Hobbes has one, and obviously Snoopy and Garfield. But the thing I loved about Gary Larson was that it was like there'd be three bears talking to each other, or one guy and three bears, or like
Yeah.
a lion.
Yeah.
Like it was just always
And bacteria,
yeah, it was always so far out of the realm of reality that it was just the image was funny and then the punchline was funny.
yeah,
It was the combination of those two things. And yeah, I always he was
it's really amazing.
hmm um but so okay, we got your sense of humor, we got your love for art, but one of the things that I really need to know is your sense of design. Like that it's almost unfair, and Jiggy, you know this, like it's almost unfair how like everything that you create is almost like, oh, why is he so talented in illustration, coloring, design, and storytelling?
No, no, that's too much. I
no,
just
it's
pray
true.
a lot. I pray a lot. I eat a lot of vegetables. I sleep 8 hours a day, sometimes 10.
There it is, folks. This is why you should eat your vegetables, because then you'll
Yeah.
be really talented at all the things you do.
No, it just I grew up. We had a lot of books at home because
Mhm,
my mother's a history professor in the university, so she had a
mhm,
lot of history books. She made me read a lot of novels and historical books. So I had to. So that was our home. We had really a lot of books about everything. So
mhm.
when I had when my brother and I had a lot of free time, we just skimmed through a lot of books.
Mhm.
There were also books about the occult.
Yeah, yeah,
So what's this?
yeah.
And when my dad saw me reading it, he told me not to tell my mom. he, wa- he told me that he was just studying the artworks. And
Yeah, the symbols, the artwork.
it was really mind expanding, having a lot of books at home that you could just read.
Right.
I think that's how I got a lot of things in my mind, like how to design stuff, how to color. Because my dad also had a lot of books about
Mhm.
painters that weren't really famous. I could study their coloring technique and all of those.
I think
Dave, I
that
just wanted to share.
yeah.
Small world. Manix's brother was my classmate in college in some
Yeah.
subjects. And then I,
Wow.
I went to Manix's exhibit and saw him. Hey, what? Oh, Manix! What? Manix is your brother.
You know, the art world can be incredibly small, even though it's huge, like, and that's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's, and the world, like, I heard somebody talking the other day about how, like, how you never just run into somebody in New York that you know. And I'm like, no, you are absolutely fucking wrong, because I grew up in New York, and there are two different times. One time I ran into my uncle on the street, who was the only one of two people in my family that worked in Manhattan. Out of 8 million people in one day, I ran into him. And then a different day, I ran into my oldest and best friend at Penn Station, where, hundreds of thousands of people go
Wow.
through it every day. And it's like,
Nice,
New York is the one place you do end up running into people if you're, there
nice,
all the time. So,
nice.
yeah. Um, so that is an overlying theme too, by the way. I've talked to a lot of cartoonists that are, my parents didn't stop me from looking at any books. They encourage me to look at books. They, encourage me to follow my art or whatever it is. And I think that's, it's kind of like you can repeat it until you're blue in the face, but really, like, parents need to let their kids find
Explore.
out, yeah, explore what they're interested in and let them go for it.
Yeah.
Um, because if you think about, like, if you think about yourself, or you think about any artist that if they were stopped at any point, we wouldn't be looking at their art. We wouldn't be talking to them about their art. We'll get back to the interview in just a second. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment down below if you are a big fan of Manix. Let's hear it in the comments. I'm talking to you, Lance. And please check out my podcast, Direct Edition, which is available on all podcast platforms, as well as it has its own YouTube channel. And without further ado, back to the video. Let's talk about 12, because this is the first of the two wordless graphic novel collection. We'll just call it a collection that you released. This I just bought it last week, and I didn't know that this was a wordless thing until I heard you talk about it, and then I think Lance had mentioned it to me. But
Yeah.
I haven't had this much fun reading something in a long time, and I read a lot of comics.
Thank you, Dave.
For anybody that's interested in checking out some of Max's work, you can get this on Amazon. It's like whatever, 14, $15. 12 stories, all wordless. The themes through here, I mean, you really do run the gauntlet: life, death, love, loss, humor, ridiculousness. But the one that, I felt a lot reading this, but the one that made me laugh the most was 6. Because 6,
It's Jiggy's favorite also.
well, because I mean, like, for the comic book enthusiast and for somebody that enjoys humor, this is basically like, this is how the X-Men or the Fantastic Four were born. Um, but I'm not going to spoil it for anybody watching this, because you two know exactly how the story goes. Like, I was choke laughing. Like, I snorted so loud, and I'm by myself just reading in my chair. And I just, like, where does, and I mean, I think I'm not 100%, like, it's not a complete homage, but this one panel here is definitely somewhat, hold on, sorry. This panel right here is almost an homage to X-Men #1, the cover right here, the original X-Men #1, where it's like Magneto, and then the,
Ah,
Yeah.
oh, I
but
didn't realize that, Dave. Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
But,
So, Manix, can I tell Dave the very first art piece like I've ever bought in my life
yeah.
was that story.
Oh, you bought the whole story.
Yes,
No, it
Jiggy.
was like the story was being sold. So, I visited I used to run a side gig with Yahoo, so I
Mhm.
blogged for them a long time ago. And one of my first interviews was with Manix right after reading 12, and he said, "Oh, please go to my exhibit." So I meet him there, and then I
Yeah,
see,
it was my first exhibit.
yeah, so 12, and what are these green dots on by next to the framed pieces? So, oh, it's for
Red,
sale.
red, the
It's
red
for
mark.
sale. So I had, and chapter 6 was still available,
Mhm.
and I like, no brainer. Like, I'm
Yeah.
getting it. Yeah.
Wow.
So first ever.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
how long does it take you to put together these 12 stories? Like, how long did you work on this book?
It was really long because I'm doing my daily comic strips,
Mhm.
and these are the stories that I was that were brewing in my mind while making my daily comic strips that I really couldn't fit into just 3 panels or just continuous strips. I wanted to make them longer, so
Mhm.
I made so that's when I started doing 12, and that it was funny because there was a time that there was a contest here in the Philippines. Neil Gaiman and Fully Booked had a comics contest, and I joined.
Hmm.
And and it had to be in English. And when I was thinking of a story, I was thinking of the dialogue in Filipino, so it was hard to translate in English because the deadline was coming really fast. It was
Hmm.
like 3 days before the deadline, and I still had to translate it. And I said, "I'll just do it wordless." So I did a wordless comic strip, and it won second place, and I was really happy because it was a new challenge for me.
It should have been first because of the technicality. Like Manix was really the real. He's being modest. He
Yeah.
really won that contest.
No, 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 no. But I had a lot of fun doing that wordless comic strip because I used different parts of my mind. It was a really different thing, and I had so much fun. That's when I started doing 12 because
Hmm.
I had so much fun doing it.
So Manix, sorry, that came first before the book.
The contest,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yes, yes,
Ah.
Mm.
contest first, and then I started doing 12.
Which you know, I've heard people talk about like the greatest, like the perfect comic is one that actually, is wordless. Because if you can tell a story without any dialogue, like that means you could tell a story anyway. A
Yes.
lot of people cite GI Joe 21 as one of the best comics of all time, which is the silent Snake Eyes issue that Larry Hama wrote. And you know, reading this, but I mean, the existentialism in it, the humor in it, the sadness in it. Like, I mean, this is I got to imagine without assuming, but is this kind of like a piece of therapy for you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
That's one of my most memorable projects ever,
mhm.
even up to now.
And since Jiggy owned, what's the size of the art on on
Oh, there
these?
were like A4 per page, and
Okay.
then the gallery framed it into one
The one
piece.
big frame.
Yeah,
Oh wow. All right. You'll have to send me a photo because I'd
I
love
will.
to
I will.
see that. And then are you coloring on the art or are you doing overlays?
Yeah,
You're
I
coloring
color
on.
it in Photoshop. Yeah, I
Oh, in
just do
Photoshop, so digital.
yeah. But I have the actual black and white that's hand drawn, and then I scan it and color it in Photoshop.
Hmm. And so then after 12 comes this amazing piece of work, 14, which,
Cartoon.
uh, you know, I didn't, it's very interesting to have your afterword instead of a forward because reading these stories, I'm like, this is wild. And then you talk about how like most of the stuff is rooted in folklore stuff
Yeah,
that
yes,
you learned about as
mythological
a kid.
creatures. Yeah, in the
But like,
Philippines.
but no matter how much folklore this is, like you added your spin onto it, and 14 is like, I mean, I, I know this is one of your influences, but it's like a Twilight Zone,
Oh yes,
you
yes.
know?
Twilight Zone is a really big influence for me. Yeah. Oh, thank you
Yeah,
for noticing that. Yeah.
yeah. I didn't know what to expect because I bought these books without knowing anything other than these are your wordless comic strips, nothing else. And I'm like, I'm reading some of these ones, and I'm like, I should be stoned while I read some of this
Thank you so much.
you know well that's the thing, like there's and look, I don't need to go too deep into, I'm not a huge pothead anymore or anything, but there is art, and like Robert Crumb does not exist without the mind, and like if you look at what they did in the underground at San Francisco and in the 60s 70s with the counterculture stuff, like those two things were intertwined. The only way they were selling those books was in head shops, in places that sold paraphernalia. But like this stuff is just like my mind felt expanded by reading it.
Wow,
No substance needed. Um,
I should
you
put
know,
that as a blurb. They
yeah, 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 yeah. The following book, no substance needed to read it, but
put
I
that in
would,
the reprint.
yeah, I would say for fans of like horror, sci-fi, or just fantasy, or all of those genres mixed together, this is the book for you. And then if you're into more kind of like feel your feelings, but also have your mind, like have some existential dread, this one's for you.
Thank
Um,
you. Thanks, Dave.
yeah. Do you have any plans for more going forward on the wordless front?
Yes, yes. Actually, I started. I already have a few pages of wordless comics, but it's
Hmm.
a different art style. I just draw silhouettes, really,
Oh
really
wow.
small silhouettes of people, and it's all about paths, our paths in life.
Oh my god.
that
I
that's
mean,
my third. That's my third wordless comic book. I released a single issue
mhm.
just this month in the Manila International Book Fair.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's almost
I'll bring some in NYCC and OAX,
all right.
and
I'll
and
have
then
to.
I'll collect those single issues after into a book.
Sweet. I, like your art style, like we talked about, was new to me, as of January. But since January, I've probably seen 300 pieces of art, that you've done that has been shared with the community. One of the things that you're now known for, at least on this side of the world, um, in the art community, is your cover recreations, which uh there's one that you were working on for me, that I'm really excited to see. But Lance, our friend Lance, Mr. Soy Boy himself, he shared some photos with me, and I just wanted to show off like two.
Oh,
I just
nice.
I picked two kind of ones that I absolutely love, but it's
Yeah.
hard because I do kind of think your cover recreations on some fronts are better than the originals, and
That's so
you know,
much.
but this one obviously has got a place in my heart. This is a cover recreation of Amazing Spider-Man 316 and by the Todd Father, but you made it your own, and like what goes like how much it's not even how much time, like how much mental preparation do you go in through when you're going to recreate one of these iconic covers, in yeah, just like what kind of preparation goes through, and then you know do you sit there and just stare at the image and like kind of sear it in your brain?
Yeah, that's actually how I do it, because it's a lot of pressure doing especially like key covers.
Right.
Uh, the pressure is real, and I'm sure the commissioner is expecting a lot for the artwork. And so I look at all the artworks first that they want me to do. Like if I'm doing a homage, I'll look at it first, and I won't draw it. I'll spend a few days doing other stuff, making my comic strips, doing other
Yeah.
artworks, and then when I feel prepared, I'll sit on it and do the artwork. And the first thing that I have to think is, how do I make it different? I have to make it different. I don't
Hmm.
I don't have to I don't like to trace. I don't like to copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a homage. I have to make it. How do I make it my style? So that's the first thing that I have to think about. And the second thing that really takes off a lot of pressure and makes it special is there's always beauty in imperfection. I
Hmm.
don't like really perfect artwork. That's just me. That's my personal take. I'm not when I'm doing artworks, I don't like it. So that's why I hand draw all those lines, the lettering. It doesn't have to be perfect. It makes it more
It's more you.
beautiful, yeah, for me.
Yeah.
Uh, if it's not perfect.
I mean, it's if I were, I mean, I know which one you're doing for me, and
It's,
I
it's,
don't
it's
want it
really
to.
hard. It's really hard, Dave.
I bet, because he's such like a technically proficient anatomy based artist, and there's a lot going on that cover.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But but the thing is like my personal view from it, if it didn't look like your artwork, then why do I want it? You know, so what you're saying makes total sense. It's like it's you're not trying to be Todd McFarlane here. You're trying to pay homage to the awesomeness of this cover. Here's another one that I wanted to show off because I'm a big Kirby fan, and this is such an iconic Kirby image. But like it's like when I look at this is like an alternate universe of what that image is, like, and then it all makes sense with stuff like this. It's like, it's just like,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, what if Manix created this image and like knowing that the Kirby existed, but what if you did it in an alternate universe? And that's
Yeah. So
This is
so
one of my
that's why I like-
favorites also.
yeah. Well, your coloring, your sense of color is unbelievable. I mean,
Well, thank you.
I couldn't believe when I saw this Galactus piece in person, and that's what Dinesh was yelling at me about. He's like, "Look at the colors! Look at the colors!" You play
Yeah,
around with paints.
my secret is my tears. I put some of my tears, some blood.
Yeah, yeah,
I sacrifice goats and cats. Just kidding.
Manix DNA.
Actually, if you wanna read how Manix creates his art, there's a story in here where these little guys go into a brain, pull out another piece of a brain, and use that. I mean, like, reading this gives me a real sense of the person you are, because I've got that ridiculousness too. I just don't have the talent to put it on a piece of paper. But yeah, you're how early were you playing around with paints? Because like
Uh,
color like
that's a-
this doesn't just come by accident.
That's a really good question because when I was doing comics professionally for 20 years, I wasn't painting. I was coloring in Photoshop because it's faster, it's easier. I just started painting when I was in high school and in college in fine arts when I was studying fine arts, and I just painted again when Jiggy invited me to join Next Comic Art. That's where I took out all my brushes again, and I had to practice because I forgot all of my earlier techniques, and I really enjoyed it. So thank you, Jiggy, for inviting me
No,
to be a
thank
part
you.
of
Thank you,
Next
Manix.
Comic Art.
So let's
When I,
oh yeah.
when I was starting, my very early artworks for Next Comic Art was mostly black and white and a little spot of color
Hmm.
because
Like
I was
Bill's
still
Wolverine.
Wolverine in the
Yeah,
forest.
that one's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I remember seeing
That
that.
was I was practicing again my watercoloring techniques first.
So Jiggy, next comic art. When did you start this company, and at this point, how many artists do you rep?
Okay. I currently rep 30, 36.
Wow.
Yeah. So the idea came in around 2019, like mid 2019, because I worked in corporate for almost 10, like 9.5, exactly 9.5 years.
Mhm.
And after that, I joined a relative who was handling her business, her own business, and she needed someone who had corporate experience. So I
Mhm.
worked with my aunt for about 3 years, and on the third year, she was she got an illness, and I figured like I realized like she's gonna retire. She's gonna call it a day, and I'm not going back to corporate. I don't want to go back to corporate.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something that I love to do, and I wanted to work in comics. So looking at comic art fans and like, hey, I love comic book art. I think I know I can be a rep, and I know these guys. So and my fellow Filipinos need help showcasing their art outside of the Philippines.
Mhm.
So I talked to the new generation. So I started with Miguel Mercado. Number two was Kim Jacinto. And the third one was Rian Gonzalez. So those three, like I call them the original trinity of next comic art.
Of course.
And that's when we started. I started with just guerrilla marketing at comic art fans, like talking to friends. And then how come all of the sites I ordered from, like it's the same email address? So I emailed Bill asking, did you make the website? And then, yeah, I did. Why? Do you want one? Actually, I do. And then we went on a Zoom call. And I really wanted to work with Bill. So this
Yeah.
was the way to go. And I believe it was sometime, was it 2020, Manix?
Yes, I think
2021.
2020. Yes, it was during.
And Manix knows this. Like I've been a fan of his work ever since I met him.
Right.
I talked to other artists. Manix doesn't want to believe it, but for example, Harvey Talibao said that Jiggy, if there was one guy who could make it to the Louvre, it's Manix. Yeah,
I agree.
So, I had a Zoom with Manix, telling him what I've been doing, and I invited him. So he goes, Jiggy, give me a week. I'll think about it. And less than a week later, he goes, you know what? Let's go. Okay. So I always say that one of the email blasts that I'm most proud of was the Manix one, because I really put my tears into the paper.
Yeah, that's our secret, Dave.
Yeah, tears. So that's the Filipino secret: is put your tears into everything you do.
And then the first Manix sale was during Comic Art Live.
Mhm.
Like of course, there were I hyped them up to the friends and all that. But the very first transaction was Bill online. Yeah, it was the Wolverine. Like, are you like? Oh my God, it's Bill Cox. And then Jiggy, my wife allowed me already, but I just can't let this piece go. So he got the Wolverine.
That was
Which-
2021. pala.
Yeah.
2021.
And then he gifted him a Wolverine, which was really nice. The one with the claw marks.
Oh, the 20th anniversary of
Yeah, the one
of
with
comic.
the cut. Yeah.
That was so cool. That
Yeah.
was so cool.
Yeah.
So
Now there's-
Dave, imagine being a Manix fan and seeing what he first submitted. Like, I want to get all these. Like, but it's so hard. Like, that's when I realized like this
Thank
is a
you.
hard job. Like, I have to share this art to the world. And
Yeah, and you have to have some self-control not to buy it all. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you.
here we are now.
Yeah, I mean, and Manix has got, you have an unofficial official fan club now, which is and you've got super fans. You've got, I mean, Lance. Does Lance own the most?
Yeah,
No,
yeah, Lance,
no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
Lance owns really, really a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
he's
think
got-
he owns the most. I think.
yeah.
We Lance beat me. Like, I have to order more Manix commission. Like, Lance just beat me.
Jiggy had the most artworks, but Lance, I think, overtook Jiggy already.
We met Lance in San Diego last year.
Oh wow, you only just met him. Well, I haven't even met him in person yet, but we've been talking for a bit. He's a fan of the channel, and really wanted this interview to happen so much. I think he pretty
talks
much
about you
did.
a lot, Dave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hello, Lance.
yeah. Hi, Lance. There's your shout out. So let's talk about this, because I know you and I don't own a copy of it. I'll track one down eventually, but you did a First Night, right? A Batman First Night
Yes.
a variant cover. Was that the first like big two or first American comic book variant cover that you did?
The first was Image Comics for
Department of Truth.
yes, Department of
Oh,
Truth,
okay.
And then followed
and-
by Monkey Meat.
Yes.
Okay, but Batman was the first one for DC.
Yes.
It's a big pressure for me.
Well, you nailed it. You even were on the news, yeah, like you were on the Filipino news because you
Oh,
did a Batman cover.
yeah, because a lot of people know me for my comic strips, and they were surprised that I was doing a Batman cover.
Well, I mean, arguably the biggest, comic book character. Period. I don't think it's arguable at this point. Batman kind of breaks through every culture that exists on this planet at this point. So, but most recently, for our fellow comic art collector and awesome person Nick Barucci, you just did this Thundercats 7. I got I got both copies. I got the
Nice,
foil and the regular cover over here. Wait,
nice,
what? All right, there. Wait, there.
Wait, there's a foil?
Yeah, this is the foil.
Wow.
nice.
Yeah.
You know, Dave, I haven't seen the physical copy yet. I'll see it in November.
Yeah,
October.
and I'll bring a couple. I got my local comic store to order as many copies as they wanted. I said I would buy them all.
The foil looks really awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you to sign out with a nice little
And
paint.
this
canvas.
might be the first non-retailer variant, Manix.
Yes, it's the first
It is,
non-retailer
right?
one.
Yeah, this was a what they call it, like a special variant or a thank. No, it wasn't a thank you. I forget the guy at the comic.
Bonus, I think, a bonus.
A bonus. That's it. That's the word. So you just did that for Thundercats 7, but announced yesterday is this.
Yeah,
What issue is this going to be? 11?
11.
11.
11. Yeah.
And this is a recreation or
The
homage
Thundercats
to,
one. Yeah.
yeah, to Thundercats 1. And so this is going to be a variant cover. And like, it's got such great energy in it. And, I'm so happy that this is going to be released because, this was a commission done for somebody, right?
It was for Nick Barucci.
Yeah,
Oh, it was.
for-
Oh, it was for Nick. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's
And that
going to
makes
use it for cover. Yeah.
But you've got some variant covers coming out. Do we have anything else that is coming out that you can announce, but we can look for?
I'm not sure if we can announce it.
You can't announce it, but there is
Yeah,
something coming.
But
Manix can neither confirm nor deny that.
but super big thank you to Nick Barucci.
Awesome. So OAX this year was I know it was a big hit for you, and you were quite busy. What was your experience with that? Like, how did you going in and coming out? Like, what was your experience from OAX for both of you, actually?
The very first memorable experience was the jet lag. The jet lag was really hardcore.
I bet.
So it's good that we went there a week before because we had to just sleep at
Mhm.
the hotel. But it's
Yeah, I
really
was telling the guys it's important to have like 1 or 2 days just to rest before the con.
before the event. It was really fun. I really enjoyed the socials night before the OAX,
Mhm.
where you get to talk with all the collectors, all the fans, and the other artists. It's really memorable for me, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, being introduced to a whole new on both sides, like us being introduced to you and you being introduced to the US collectors. I mean, I got to imagine it's such a wildly fun experience, and I had a great time. And like I said, I was just super overwhelmed, but in the best way, like
Yeah,
meeting
it's really
people. Yeah, and then so San Diego Comic-Con this year, you got a chance to put some of your homages in certain artist hands, right? Like,
oh, it's all because of Lance. Lance went to our booth. Hey, Jim Lee's here. Jim Lee's here. You should go there. So he'll pull me in.
Manix disappeared, and then it's the thing. Like he went over to Albert.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
went to Albert Moy's booth. Jim Lee was there, and Lance had Jim Lee hold my Jim Lee homages, and we had pictures. It was really surreal.
right. And then I saw one with the Todd father,
Yeah,
and then, yeah,
with,
like both of
Art
them.
Adams. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the Art Adams one too. That was that New Mutants piece, right?
Yes,
I
yes.
think
Well, it was all Lance.
Lance. So Lance is the Lance is the mouthpiece. He's the mouth of Sauron. Uh, um, but no, it's been really nice to see kind of like the more and more people getting turned on to your art. And like I said, I've only known who you are for this year, but it's but now reading your books, that's my next step. Like, is there future any of your Filipino stuff ever going to be translated, or is that's probably a ways off?
Oh, actually, Dave, we're working on a few of my books. We're having it translated that we think will suit to the global audience.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I don't see why this shouldn't be in Barnes and Nobles and the other stuff too, because like I've looked at some of the stuff online and I've thought about buying it. I'm like, well, it's going to be kind of tough for me to read it. Like, but that being said, I should be smacking myself for saying that, because I do own a bookshelf of Japanese manga that's not
And
translated. Stuff like there's just some. I got a friend who sells rare manga, and he's just like, yeah, you should check this out, and check this out, and like even some Katsuhiro Otomo stuff has never been translated into the U.S. So maybe I need to go buy me a box of Manix.
I think the lowest hanging fruit would be like collating all the English strips already and putting it
Hmm.
into one.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it beats the translating because it's already in English.
yeah.
Right, like the travel stuff, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. The
Yeah.
travel hardcore.
I want to talk about another thing that you did this year. Was you partnered up with New Era and did a signature, or you designed some hats, right?
Yeah.
What
Oh,
was
that's
that?
thanks to Jiggy because Jiggy had contacts with with Noor.
Well, Jiggy,
And
good job on that.
yeah, and it's really exciting because I used my daily comic strip characters, my Kiko machine. I put it into to the New Era caps.
Hmm.
It was a really fun experience because I got to design, the under the rim, under
Yeah,
the and
yeah,
everything.
under.
Yeah, and they didn't say no. They just they said yes to everything, and they even went the extra mile. They put extra stitchings.
Hmm.
They made it. They just made it really special.
Well, I think there should be a couple of those hats available at OAX next year. Just saying.
Yeah, we hope to make it available.
Yeah.
It was for our the Philippines Independence Day special. Those caps.
Aha. Okay.
There
Yeah.
are just
So
a few remaining. Two designs have sold out, so there's
wow.
one more. So I think Manix and I should contact the marketing team and just reserve it for OAX.
Yeah, yeah, because those things wouldn't stick around that table past the first day, and in with that, I just wanted to kind of point out like your book
Oh,
design
nice.
here. It's just there's always talk about people, creators who are doing the whole thing, and like this is just like the icing of the cake. I mean, I don't own this, but this is Kikomachine Komix. This is one of your books, and like designing now, was it your design choice to do the gold foil?
Yes, yes, yes. I
Yeah.
really enjoy. I really like gold foil and silver and everything. I really like studying different kind of books and their designs, and I apply it
Mhm.
to my own comic books just to
Well,
make it different.
yeah, yeah, and I'd love to see what this looks like in person, because we're both '90s kids, and
Yeah,
gold foil is on every
yeah,
comic or every other comic. So
makes it
you know,
special.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think is there anything else that you guys want to talk about or mention? You're going to be at New York Comic Con, which is in October. What's the dates again? Like it's like the end, like towards the
Six
end.
is it 16, 17 to 20? I think.
Okay, so this will
Yeah,
air probably a week and a half, 2 weeks probably before New
Okay.
York. So everybody will be able to meet you in New York. Are you going to be bringing any? Oh, you said there might be an exclusive or something coming before then, or no?
The books, Manix, you're gonna bring some books, right?
Yes, yes. I'm going to
Yeah.
bring some books. I'm going
Okay,
to bring the first chapter of the new wordless comic book that I
right.
said.
And
Yeah.
Jiggy, how many artists are going to be there from next?
6. Yeah, maybe 7, but 6. Like the 7th is from New York, so he's still deciding if he can spend some time with us. Oh,
Hmm.
but there will be also artists from Next, but they will be representing a different company since they
Hmm.
work for. So Kim Jacinto and Luigi Teruel will actually be there for Sandstorm Comics,
Okay.
but they will be in NYCC.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you guys will have a booth there, so that'll be good. Anything else? We know OAX is going to come up in January and you'll be there, but anything else before then, in between now and then to
Comic
promote?
Art Live.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
We've heard of them before.
Yeah. So the November one, Bill always gives us the Saturday 9 p.m. slot. So we end day one with a bang. So we'll have
Nice.
that panel and art sale, and yeah, maybe have a few surprises along the way.
Oh, I love surprises. Yeah, I totally
There's
forgot
a lot
about
of
that.
surprises.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Well, I can share, Dave. As an art rep, when we released Manix's commissions, you'll never know who emails you. And then there was this one particular email, like, you gotta be shitting me. So
really.
I woke up
Oh, yeah.
Manix and then, dude, this person emailed, and then it was like 1 a.m. And then
Yeah, yeah.
Manix was like, huh? And then, I woke up too, Jiggy. Like, really? Like, yep.
Yeah. And then I didn't sleep.
You'll have to tell me when we're not recording. That's yeah, like
Yeah,
I
he's a really big
we,
writer.
we need to send that person copies of 12 and 14.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is easily also available for anybody watching this on Amazon. I'll make it double easy. I will throw the link to order 12 and 14 down below in the description. So that's all you have to do. And remember, like for anybody that's got an Amazon Prime account, it's free shipping.
Hey Dave, thank you. Thank you for plugging.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Dave, what was your favorite from after chapter 6? What else did you like?
from 12
Yeah.
specifically, the brain one, the one that I showed off, so that was at 10. Um, yeah,
What
probably the
got you?
brain one.
Did any story make you cry or like feel sad?
I mean, the one that made me feel sick. I'm
The
a
last
sick
one?
I'm a sick bastard. So like um the last one was good, the comedian one. This one 11. 11 made me feel a lot because like
Yeah.
I
The
think this
comedian,
one,
yeah. That's the comedian, yeah.
yeah, this one is there's a lot to interpret from that. And I think it's always good to be challenged when you're digesting art, whether it's movie, music, TV, or reading a story. I often enjoy things that force me to go back to redigest it again so that I can take it in. The one from 14 that I really liked. Well, okay, the one that really bugged me, and it's supposed to, was the one with the where he goes to the other, he gets dragged by the beautiful
Oh, I
woman
was
to
gonna say that
get
the family, the
yeah, the
family that
family
goes
one,
to him. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that one got to me, but because it's supposed to, like you're supposed to, but then at the end,
Yep.
you know who
Yeah,
you side with and you know what you're
that's
feeling. But
that's there's a good twist there to that story.
yeah,
Mannix started off like, "Hey, this is cute," and then, wait, what just happened?
yeah, yeah. And then this one, the traffic one where he's sitting in traffic, like that one was
Yeah.
mind blowing also. I like the presentation of this because it was like with 12, because they're all kind of short stories that don't really relate to each other, but 14, I didn't know where it was going. It's like, okay, he's getting off this floor and he's in hell with these
Yeah,
demons.
it's
And
the 13th floor. Yeah.
the 13th, I'm sorry, yeah, the 13th floor. And you don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's story time with these little demon,
Storytelling
like
session.
these. Yeah. And, I often, when a comic is good, and I don't know if you could see it. I have the Carl Barks Centennial up here, the Scrooge McDuck
Oh wow.
Centennial book.
Nice.
I look at him like I started reading some Barks stuff, and I was like, oh, this is what comics is supposed to be like. There's no better pacing comic that has ever existed than what Barks was doing with the Ducks. And then I started reading some Usagi Yojimbo and some Dragon Ball, and it's the same thing. Like, the pacing of it is so good, and you often start to think like how this would look if it was an animated series, because cartoons and cartoon strips go hand in hand. And with this, especially 14, I was reading it but I was kind of feeling like it was animated, and it would be amazing to see 14 as a full,
Oh,
1 hour 45-minute animated movie.
Dave, that's a really good thing to say, because there's something going on about for 14. That's all I can say.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's all we can.
there's something new coming out.
All right, awesome. Well,
But I have
and
to be quiet.
yes, no, we don't want them to come after you, whoever they are. Um, but yeah, I encourage anybody, like, sure, it'd be nice to own some more variant covers, but for people to go and pick these books up, because I mean, like, even if you took your time reading them, these are books that you don't want to put down. You just read the whole. I read both of them in one sitting.
Wow.
Yeah,
Did you start with 12?
I started with 12 and then did
Okay,
14.
yeah.
Yeah, because in the world of comics and cartoon strips are definitely different. They are meant to be like like I was just saying, like, they're supposed to be paced perfectly. But with comics these days, like, I put more down than I really enjoy. Like, I'll read half a book and be like, why did I buy this? but with this, I was like, oh, I want more.
Oh, thank you
Yes,
so much,
Manix,
Dave.
we
Thank
want
you.
more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll start
So,
working on that now.
all right. Well, for anybody watching, like I said, I'll put the links down below to buy those books. I'll put Next Comic Art, which is very easy to figure out what the website is. It's been up there for the last hour and 11 minutes. And you guys got to follow Manix on Instagram, so I'll put that stuff in the description. Before we get going, is there anything else that we want to promote, or anybody you want to give a shout out to? I mean, I guess we should give a shout out to Kazra, because Kazra loves you too.
Yeah. Hello, guys.
And Bill.
And Bill,
Bill,
yes. Well,
thank you so much.
Bill has been championing you since I guess like
I
2020,
think we
right?
gotta mention Marcus Way.
Mm.
Marcus has been instrumental with the Thundercats, also with Nick Barucci. So thank you, Marcus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you, Marcus.
Marcus, is always a pleasure to watch what you're saying in the chat, because it's always going after
It's really
Bill.
poetic.
Yeah.
And
But all right, well, I appreciate you both. This has been
Well,
awesome.
thank you, Dave.
thank you,
Well,
Dave.
Thank you. I mean, I always, whenever I'm doing an interview with somebody, I always want to make sure that I'm reading their work before. Otherwise, I can't do my proper due diligence. So, thank you for coming on and being such great conversationalists. And we'll definitely do this again. But I'll see you guys in like 3 months and change.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Can't wait.
We're excited.
Thanks for watching this great interview. I had a blast talking to both of them, and I'm excited to see them again at OAX in Orlando next year, which is the original art expo put on by comic art fans. And I really had a blast. And please check out the links down below where you can buy 12 and 14 off of Amazon, which are Manix's wordless comics. And also check out Jiggy's website down below as well, Next Comic Art. And you should definitely come to OAX, but check these guys out and say hello to them at NYCC and tell them Dave sent you. All right, I'll see you next week.